This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Wherever your work takes you, you know it's going to be a good time because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. They have free breakfast, fully equipped gyms, and free high-speed Wi-Fi to help you take care of any last-minute business or help keep you in the know on all things sports. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you triumph. Book your stay today at lq.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Paddock and the Pavilion. After our first part with the remarkable Ron Hutchinson, who had a very successful time riding winners at Royal Ascot, we are back with a Royal Ascot theme with a focus on 2024. In this episode, I was joined by American syndicate manager Harlan Malter, who discussed his plans to return to Royal Ascot with a runner sired by his 2018 Group 1 King's Stand Stakes contender-turned-stallion, BUCCHERO. Plus, Will Aitkenhead, Senior Corporate and Industry Affairs Manager for Ascot Racecourse, spoke about attracting international runners to the Royal meeting. Don't forget, if you like the show, we could always do with a rating or review. It all helps promote the Paddock and the Pavilion to new listeners. This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Great British Racing International. Great British Racing International is British horse racing's dedicated service provider, committed to helping international parties navigate the networks that make up this world-leading industry and promoting stories from within British racing to a global audience. Hello, Harlan. Thanks for joining us on the Paddock and the Pavilion to talk about your dream of returning to Royal Ascot.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, I wanted to start by asking you how you began your interest in horse racing.
I'm a big sports fan from childhood on. Anything sports. My father and brother and I attended baseball, football, hockey, and horse racing kind of just was one of the things that we did. I was not a horse racing family. My father had nothing to do with horses in any way, shape, or form. But once a year, I grew up in Boston, and you could just drive right across Massachusetts to Saratoga Springs. And once a year we go, and it's an amazing kind of pastoral type track in the States, which is not normal. A lot of them are very urban. And there's a big picnic area in the back, and we get there and we lay down a blanket. And for some reason, it was just the whole atmosphere was amazing as a child. And I used to say to my brother there, we're going to own one of these horses, be inside, be with one of these horses. And so it took a while. I think it can be a intimidating experience to kind of figure out if you're not in it all, how do I get a trainer? How do I get a horse? How do I do any of this? So basically back in 2006-07, I finally said I'm going to buy a share in a syndicate. And I did that, and it got me started. And it's been a very rapid increase of part of my life. It's probably gone from 0 to about 90% now. So it's definitely something once it's in your blood, it's hard to get out of.
You can certainly say it's rapid with your most famous horse, BUCCHERO. How did you come to get him?
Well, again, a lot of it was fandom. I've told the story a couple of times, and it's two parts about horse racing, which I find amazing. I'd say about 90% of my friends now are horse racing people. It's a great industry for people who want to connect and build up relationships. And there had been a horse in the States named Lost in the Fog when I was really just a fan. He had ended up running the Breeders' Cup as a fantastic 2- and 3-year-old. And I've been a big fan of his. They made a documentary, and in that documentary, they talked to the people who consigned the horse. Some very, very nice people. And I ended up meeting somebody else who happened to know them, which happens a lot in horse racing, and we connected. And long story short, I bought a couple inexpensive horses, and I said to them, look, I don't have the money that most of these people have, to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. I need the horse that you think is worth that much, but might have an issue that's going to fall through the cracks. I need the fall through the cracks horse. And I got a phone call one day, and I'll tell the previous story why I listened. He called me and said, I have one. It's going to fall through the cracks. It's January. I'd like to sell you the horse, but, we were going to sell it in April, but if you want to just do it now, you can buy it now. So I think it was $90,000. And I said, that's out of my price range, unfortunately. He said, okay, well, that horse ended up going to the April sale just 4 months later and selling for $475,000 to the Japanese. So the next time he called and said, I have a horse, I picked up the phone, and it's, this story may go a little bit longer, but it is interesting. He called me and said, look, this horse has a first year sire, Florida sire, not heralded, gorgeous horse, breezed fantastic, it was a 2-year-old sale, has a little vet issue, not major. I've had the horse since he was a baby. It's never going to bother him, but I can't tell other buyers that because I'm a guy selling a horse. So got on the phone with him. I told him I'll bid 40. The bidding, I bid 39. Someone bid 40. I bid 41, and they bid 42 immediately. And I said, well, that's it. And he said, you sure? You sure you don't want to? I said, one more, then hang up the phone. Well, he hung up the phone. I'm watching. He bids at 43. We got it for 43. So it was a fortunate experience. I wish I could say that I'd spent hours and hours reading pedigrees and things like that, but this was on the good word of somebody who I developed a good relationship with.
Well, he also had a successful bid because the horse changed your life, really.
I say it all the time. I mean, some people talk about changing your life financially. A much bigger thing is changing the path of your life. And, I went from just, having fun owning some racehorses to, the Breeders' Cup, winning a graded stakes at Keeneland, the Breeders' Cup, being invited to run at Royal Ascot. And, here I am, just a little guy trying to bring a horse that I, was lucky enough to turn into a stallion and now bring one of his babies back to run here. So it's altered pretty much every part of my life.
Well, he ran at Royal Ascot on the 19th of June 2018. This is BUCCHERO in a outstanding field. I mean, Blue Point won the race. This is a King Stand Stakes. And I was looking up, Blue Point won it in 2018. He won it again in 2019. The horse that came second, Batash, won that race in 2020. And also Lady Aurelia was seventh, and she won the race in 2017. And you came fifth. It was dream come true, really.
Well, I'll one last piece you left out. The third place finisher, I want to give her that credit. Mabs Cross ran third, and she was the Cartier Sprinter of the Year that year, on top above Blue Point and Batash. So it was for a guy who had no idea what I was running into. It was very interesting because Lady Aurelia, I believe, went off at about 5-2, and BUCCHERO went off at 50-1. And what had been so interesting was I said, I guess people aren't paying attention. We beat Lady Aurelia pretty soundly in the Breeders' Cup just a couple months, 6 months earlier, 7 months earlier. So I think that our target was beating Lady Aurelia, and when we beat her, we thought we were in good shape. Unfortunately, ran into some kind of legendary sprinters, but it was an amazing experience. And BUCCHERO ran his eyeballs out, and just couldn't. He's just the type of horse you're just proud every time he goes out and runs.
What did you like about him as a horse?
That was exactly. I had been an athlete, and I know sometimes how hard it is to get up every day and practice, how hard it is every day to compete at your highest level. And what Tim Gleishaw and I always joked about, we were a trainer, we shipped him all over. He ran at 13 race courses. Now, I know in the UK, people ship all over. There's different meets. That's not how it's in the States. You'll find very good horses that maybe ran at 2 or 3 racetracks their whole career. He ran at 13 racetracks in 31 races. And we used to always joke when he got off the van, we could set the gate up in the parking lot and he'd run his eyeballs out. We ran him on synthetic, we ran him on turf, we ran him on dirt, we ran him long, we ran him short. Anytime you're lucky enough to own a horse, and we have another one now named Get Smokin', who's a very similar type horse, that if you put him in the gate, they're going to run. You got to soak in and appreciate those because they're far and few between. And he epitomized that.
Well, that should mean he should be a good stallion with all that variety. He should breed. And your now dream is to take one of his progeny back to Royal Ascot, and plans were for a horse, a colt called Mattingly that ran at Gulfstream Park earlier this year.
We tried. I think anybody in horse racing would say that this was one of the craziest ideas, that we'd probably try to do something like this. But in January, this idea of trying to get one over this year specifically came about. And the March, really our only option was to buy in a March 2-year-old sale, the Ocala breeder sale, because April was going to be too late. Well, lo and behold, there were 6 BUCCHEROs, and that's, obviously that's a small selection to say I'm going to try to get a horse that's going to go to Royal Ascot or even be a stakes horse or even get in the gate, let alone any of that. So we went, and we were just lucky enough to find just a really special horse who just had the pieces, was an athlete, and was mature, composed. And we said, well, this is one we're going to take a shot with. So we bought that horse. And what was amazing is, and I had nothing to do with this, obviously, at the first day of that sale, Gulfstream announced that they were going to do a qualifying race just 45 days later at Gulfstream. Well, the pieces all fell into place, and it's easy to write down a plan in horse racing and throw it away about 3 days after you wrote it down. This one went to plan, and we got him in the gate, and he ran a fantastic race. We just unfortunately that day, ran against a horse that was either more ready or I'm going to be his biggest supporter this week, No Name Mets. So I hope he runs fantastic.
And your horse ran second at Gulfstream Park on the 13th of May. Correct.
We ran second to a very, very nice No Name Never, who you did not expect a No Name Never to show up at Gulfstream in the middle of May, but it did, and it ran very, very well. It was very forward, very precocious. It had breezed 20-4 at the April sale already, and we put in our best effort. And Mattingly should be running back in the next 2 weeks at Gulfstream, and we're hoping we can get a win and be off to Stakes Company in America.
So, Harlan, what do you think attracts international runners to come to Royal Ascot now?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the Breeders' Cup really has become a centerpiece of American racing, and it's really the opportunity for most owners and fans to see these international horses come over. And I think the Breeders' Cup, it's one of my favorite meets to be at. And I think most fans, and I think once a lot of the American television, NBC picked up coverage of Ascot, it's really grown quite a bit. From an owner standpoint, now that you've been exposed to it, you've seen Americans go over and have success. I think the idea of going over and competing against this level of horse and in this type of environment is very attractive. I will say, people keep asking, oh, you want to go back? I said, you got to go run a horse there first. And then you'll understand why you want to get back there, because it's really just a fantastic week of racing that gets put on at Royal Ascot. And I think, look, most people own racehorses to compete against the best. If you're lucky enough to have one, you want to compete against the best, and you like to compete in one of the best meets in the world. So if you get the horse, it's an opportunity. It's very, very hard to pass up. And I think a lot of American owners are thirsting for that type of experience.
And Wesley Ward has certainly been a trailblazer, hasn't he, with his 2-year-olds?
He absolutely has. I think he found a niche that people weren't doing initially. He's very, very good at it, and I think he's kind of shown that path of the 2-year-olds. We have some horses with Mark Cassey. Actually, the horse I mentioned, Get Smokin'. Obviously, Mark brought an older horse over, Tepin, and that was kind of a magical experience, I think, for everybody back in the States to have her come over and win. And I'm hoping that this kind of continues and more American presence is there, because I think I was in Dubai and I saw Japan is coming. Japan is coming to win races everywhere, and they came to the Derby this year. They're starting to come here, and I think America should be doing the same thing.
Let's hear from Ascot Racecourse and their Senior Corporate and Industry Affairs Manager, Will Aitkenhead. I asked Will how the course goes about attracting international runners to the Royal meeting. How do you go about attracting international runners to Royal Ascot?
Well, that's a good question, Stephen. Look, the main thing for us is the international element and flavour of the meeting. So, crucially, it's about identifying the right horses more than anything else. And that they can come from anywhere. We've seen that in recent years from Australia, Hong Kong, America and Japan, and I think the key to it, as I say, is getting the right horses and building those relationships with those trainers and owners to work with them to bring the horse over. It's not a case of throwing loads of money at it and putting on prize money. It's finding the right horse that can come and compete and do well in the specific races that fit the program. we know what that program is now with the 8 Group 1s, and clearly that's the focus really for attracting international runners, and it's developing with time. We've seen the Commonwealth Cup come in 2015, and that's become a really, really attractive option to Americans. So it's a case of working with those American trainers, our agents in those countries, and then finding the horses that can come and the trainers that want to bring them. So yeah, I mean, it starts all year round. The process begins through the winter, following the international program, through Breeders' Cup, Melbourne Cup meeting, into the Hong Kong end of year meeting, and then through into the new year, and just working out what the right horses are for our races.
Lots of Zoom calls and presumably face-to-face meetings. Yeah,
lots of face-to-face travel. Our directors are out and about all through the winter, as I say, travelling to the Breeders' Cup, into Melbourne Cup and Flemington, and then we'll go to other parts of America as well. Florida, go and see the trainers down in Florida, Hong Kong, Japan as well, tied into the championships meeting at Sydney as well in the new year. So lots of travel, lots of background work, and a lot of it's a long-term play. You won't always get the horse every time you go, and it's just building those relationships with the trainers to make sure that when they have the right horse, that we're top of the list for them to bring them over to run at Ascot.
And you also have some qualifying races.
We do, yeah. We had for the first time this year there were 2 2-year-old races at Gulfstream Park, the Royal Palm Series, one for colts and one for fillies, and they had an incredible start. I mean, Crimson Advocate won the fillies race and came here and won the Queen Mary. So that was fantastic. That really was an initiative put together by First Racing, the Astronic Group, who obviously run Gulfstream Park. So it's full credit to them really for their initiative. But obviously we're very supportive of them and of that initiative. And it was great that George Weaver had both the winners of their races, the colt and the filly. No name Mets, so the colt running the Norfolk, and then obviously Crimson Advocate. So that's a really exciting initiative that we might see more of in the future. But obviously, there's key races within the existing pattern as well that feed very closely into Royal Ascot. I mean, the Lightning Stakes, the Black Caviar Lightning Stakes at Flemington in February has been a key trial really for the King's Stand. You've seen Shazir, Takeover Target, Nature Strip, and obviously then Coolangatta this year, who won the Lightning and then came over and ran the King's Stand. So that's a really key race for us. And there's other key races across the international programme that feed in really well into our programme. Talking
of Black Caviar, has there been a plan to attract more international runners? I've looked on your website and it says since 2003, 202 runners outside Europe have run at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2003 is that key year really, with Shazir winning the King's Stand, and then it would have been the Golden Jubilee at the time. That was a really kind of seminal moment, I think, for us and for internationals, or certainly Australians, that they realised that they could travel a horse all the way over the world and win not just once but twice in a week. So since then, obviously we've had some of those great Australian sprinters, and obviously Black Caviar the best of the lot really. So it's been a really conscious effort of the organisation to build that international presence, and it's crucial to the meeting. It really is. It's something that sets, we want it to set the meeting apart from everything else. I mean, last week we had in the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes, we had 4 continents represented, and that was really a kind of justification of the initiative and the programme, and that just is a circular. It's a self-fulfilling circular really, in that once you get the runners, you get the international interest. The broadcast deals are then fall into place as part of that, and then the money can be reinvested back into the prize money to attract horses in the future. So it is a real circular kind of strategy.
And regarding the Americans, has sort of the Wesley Ward influence brought more American runners as well?
It has, absolutely. I mean, Wesley's pioneer, the way he's campaigned some of his horses, especially the 2-year-olds, but not just the 2-year-olds, his older horses as well. Obviously, Lady Really came back and won There's a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I think that's inspiring others to try the same. I've just mentioned, we saw George Weaver come over. We've seen Christophe Clement, and there's others as well. So yes, Wesley's definitely leading the way. He's had a dry spell now, the last 2 Royal Ascots, but he'll keep bringing his best horses, and others are following as well. So that's really exciting.
What do you think the attraction is of Royal Ascot to these international runners? Is it now the quality of the racing?
I think obviously the prestige and the quality that we put on. These races are stallion making races. So if you can bring a horse over to win a European Group 1, then that adds a huge amount to the value of that horse. And obviously we saw Coolmore try last year with Home Affairs from Australia, and others will try as well. But it's not just that; it goes way beyond that. I mean, we've seen Nature Strip as an example of a gelding that would travel the world. There's no need to. There's the prize money in Australia is incredible. And you look at the races like the Everest and all those pop-up races that have appeared. They don't need to bring these horses over, but Chris Waller and his team, and the owners, they wanted to because of the prestige and the sporting accomplishment of doing so, and they were richly rewarded with his performance last year. So. It's a whole mixture of things, really, and prize money is an element of that. We talk about British racing's prize money problems, but at Royal Ascot, it is we're trying to make it as internationally competitive as possible. So that's another it's another factor. So a whole mix of factors in play there.
That must give you and the staff at Royal Ascot great satisfaction.
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. And to see the numbers of horses that travel over and want to come and be part of it, and part of that's the ownership experience as well. I think there were 60 or 70 of them with Artorias this year and last year. Same with the astrologists. They're bringing huge numbers over just to be a part of the day. And obviously, they'll only do so when they've got the right horse. But coming over for that experience is a major factor, and as you say, it's hugely satisfying to see them come over and have success.
And finally, the future, more Japanese runners, hopefully.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's obviously the rise of Japanese racing has been well documented, and they've had huge success. Saudi Arabia and Dubai, and as well as the Breeders' Cup. It's difficult. The timing of our season here is difficult with Japan. Obviously they can run in those Middle Eastern meetings and still fit in their home program. We've seen Equinox go from Dubai and then into the race at Japan at the weekend, and their prize money and their pattern and the structure of the racing at Japan makes it attractive for them to stay at home. So we need to try and break into that. We have had Japanese runners in the past. I think the timing, as I say, is a challenge, and also the ground is a challenge. They want really, really quick ground, and good to firm ground here is not the same as good to firm ground back in Japan, which is what they're looking for. So we'll work on that. We work very closely with some of the other large independent race courses, Goodwood and York in particular, and the Jockey Club to put on a program of races for these horses that we can attract them to come over for a season or half a season here. So fingers crossed, we'll keep working on that. As I said before, it's a long-term play with a lot of these things. So that's obviously on the agenda. Hong Kong again is another one. We had the first Hong Kong runner here in Wellington in the Jubilee since 2016. He's the first horse to travel over since then. So that's a really important market for us, obviously with the Whirlpool and the impact that Hong Kong runners will have on that Whirlpool. So that again, we'd hope to attract more Hong Kong runners in the coming years. And then who knows? I mean, South Africa. We've had runners from South Africa in the early 2000s that they've struggled with African horse sickness and all the problems that has delivered to the country. So hopefully that might come onto the agenda again in the not so distant future. And then just really building on the rest. Really, as I said, the success hopefully of Nature Strip last year will encourage more Australians to want to come over, especially those sprinters. And then everywhere else really. It's a global sport. It really is. So hopefully we can continue to attract more of those international runners in the coming years. But
now a change of plan, Harlan, with Mattingly. he's not coming to Royal Ascot in 2023.
Correct. Right. So we ran second. It was part of the prize money was a stipend for travel, which the reality is quite an expensive endeavor to come over. And we just thought it was the right thing to keep him in the States right now. Our goal with him is not over yet. I mean, we could clearly come back and run one of the 3-year-old races. We still have very, very high hopes for him. But we thought what made most sense off of that effort is get his win down at Gulfstream if we can. There's a race coming up, as I mentioned, in about 10 days. And we're lucky enough to win that, head off to win a stakes on our own, get our stakes win, and then go from there.
But the dream's still alive for hopefully 2024. And I understand you're going to see James Ferguson in Newmarket. Correct.
So arrived this morning, heading over to his yard tomorrow morning. We'd already talked at length about this idea, and the plan will be come over in the fall and develop right through James's program. And if we're lucky enough to be early, we'll see if James can get us back to Royal Ascot.
So the horse will be permanently based in the UK when it comes over.
Instead of bringing one over, breaking it, prepping it in the States, we're going to get it started right from the start here. I think that might give us an advantage. Get an early, hopefully an early win in early 2024, and then try to get there the old-fashioned way, campaigning the horse this way.
And BUCCHEROs, do they tend to be precocious 2-year-olds?
Yes, he has obviously a little bit smaller crop than some of the major stallions. I think he had about 50 runners right now, and he has 29 winners from the 50 runners. So there were a lot of very solid 2-year-olds, and he was a very good 2-year-old. So his progeny has followed along with that. Look, he was a very fast, athletic horse. He was not the type of horse you looked at and said, boy, when he's 3, he's really going to turn into something. He developed quite well, but his babies come out running. They breeze very, very well at the sales. His babies tend to be the fastest. He had the fastest worker at this past June sale, a filly that went 9-3 for an 8th, which is the ties for the fastest of all time in that sale.
And why James Ferguson in Newmarket?
Well, I wanted to work with, there's obviously tons of choices, but James seems to be kind of a young, upcoming trainer. And I think kind of being part of a project like this, I'd like to work with someone who is excited about the whole idea, excited about kind of exposing American racing to the process. And he seemed very open to the idea of kind of including me / however people are able to follow this progress. I wanted to find a partner in the process.
I guess you'll be making quite a few trips over then to the UK.
We'll see. My daughter just is about to turn 7, and she's finally starting to realize when I leave and gives me those sad eyes. But maybe I'll bring her along a couple of trips. But yes, I will be coming over quite often.
Well, there's worse places to go than Newmarket if you love horse racing.
Oh, the minute I got back from our first trip, I said you must go to Newmarket. The way I describe it's the Disneyland of horse racing. It's kind of, a place built from the ground up for horses.
But you're dusting your top hat and tails off for Royal Ascot 2023.
I am. I have purchased my own top hat and tails, and so now I have to come to get my money's worth. But no, it's something that I like to make something I do every year, actually. So I have them, and I'll be attending this year. And I'm like I said, I'm very excited to see a lot of the American runners, especially, as I said, No Name Metz. Hopefully he can put in a good effort.
And what makes the meeting so special for you? Is it the history, the racing, the fashion?
People know me. The fashion is very low on the level. When I go to pick the one thing, the tie that matters, I don't even know what to pick. I'm colorblind. So the fashion's the bottom. The top is, to me, it's amazing. What I love about the Breeders' Cup in America is it's really the meet that gets the most educated, enthusiastic viewers, right? It's the end of the meet. It's the top horses. People are looking forward to it. Ascot is very similar, except it seems like it's the whole city of London that wants to be there. And Just there's just a energy there, and excitement about it. Obviously, I think this year without the Queen is obviously it'll be a new feel, because I really felt that way. You could feel her presence there, and knowing that you were running there and the joy she was getting from it and hosting it. But I just think it's a meet that brings together so many people who are enthusiastic about the sport. It's just fun to be part of.
But to end our podcast, the American dream for you through BUCCHERO lives on.
Absolutely. I'm hoping we'll do the same thing next year, right before we have a runner.
Well, the very best of luck. I hope all goes well with James Ferguson, and hope to see you at Royal Ascot in 2024 with a filly or colt of BUCCHERO.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.